4-year-old girl was waiting at school for a father who never came. That single missed pickup would lead police to the home of a respected university professor, where a routine welfare check turned into a homicide investigation. Inside, officers found Dr. Todd Morgan dead, spent 9mm casings scattered through the house, no gun in sight, and a bloody shoe print that did not match the first responders. Then came an even stranger clue. At almost the exact time neighbors heard gunshots, a silent 911 call was placed from inside Todd's home. The phone behind that call would help reveal a trail involving a dating app, suspicious money transfers, a missing cell phone, forensic DNA, and a woman who repeatedly told detectives she could barely remember Todd at all. On April 19, 2023, Mary Ann contacted police in Hudson, Ohio, after Todd failed to pick up their 4-year-old daughter, Cecilia, from school. Todd and Mary Ann were separated, and there were ongoing custody issues, but she told police this behavior was completely unlike him. Calls to his phone rang without an answer. For a father known for spending time with his children, playing games, watching movies, and taking them outdoors, simply forgetting a school pickup did not make sense. Todd Morgan was 41 years old and taught at Cleveland State University. He had earned a doctorate in business administration from Kent State University and was described in the transcript as academically driven, adventurous, and devoted to his family. When officers reached his house, however, those ordinary details of his life were quickly replaced by something disturbing. Looking through the property, officers spotted Todd lying on the floor. There was a large amount of blood, and the severity of the injury initially made one officer wonder whether they were seeing a suicide. But that possibility began collapsing almost immediately. There was no firearm beside the body. Instead, officers found several shell casings near Todd and another casing near the staircase. If Todd had shot himself, where was the gun? And why were casings spread through different parts of the house? As police cleared the rooms, the scene became more puzzling. The master bedroom was in disorder, with bottles, snack packaging, and condoms scattered around. The children's room was messy too, but it did not show the same kind of disruption. Nothing about the house gave detectives a simple explanation for what had happened. The more they looked, the more the scene suggested that another person had been there. Then investigators noticed a bloody shoe print. At first, they considered the obvious possibility that a responding officer or paramedic had stepped in blood and left it behind. One by one, they checked the soles of the people who had entered. The tread did not match. That print appeared to belong to somebody else. That detail would matter much later. A damaged doorframe added another layer of confusion. Officers initially questioned whether they themselves had caused it when entering. But the broken wood appeared too far from the doorway to fit that explanation, and the officers said the door had opened without the kind of force that would have thrown the piece across the area. Investigators were now dealing with a scene containing spent casings, no weapon, an unexplained bloody footprint, and signs that something violent had happened around the exit. Police began canvassing the neighborhood. One woman, Linda, told officers that her daughter had babysat Todd's children. She remembered feeling uneasy around him and knew that he had been divorced and had dated someone. Her account did not identify a killer, but it hinted that Todd's personal life was more complicated than investigators first understood. Detectives also returned to the people closest to Todd. Mary Ann told officers that, years earlier, the boyfriend of another ex-partner had felt threatened by Todd and that exchanges had sometimes been arranged in public or around a police department. She also mentioned that Todd had once dated one of his university students. Both details sounded significant in the first hours of a murder investigation, when almost any unresolved relationship can look like a possible motive. But according to the transcript, neither lead produced the answer police were looking for. Instead, they helped investigators understand how many different parts of Todd's personal life they would have to untangle before they could separate coincidence from evidence. Other neighbors had seen Todd with his children only days earlier and reported nothing that immediately explained his death. Then detectives spoke with Eugene and Sherry, who lived across from Todd's house. Their observations gave the investigation its first solid timeline. A small, light-colored car had been parked near Todd's Porsche early that morning. Around 7:20, the neighbors saw a person leave Todd's house and go to the vehicle. The person appeared to retrieve something, take it back inside, then return to the car and leave. The figure had a smaller build and long dark hair, though the witnesses could not confidently say whether the person was male or female. More importantly, they remembered hearing a series of loud bangs with pauses between them. Only later did those sounds make sense as possible gunshots. The vehicle did not race away. It left at an ordinary pace, a detail that had seemed so unremarkable at the time that the neighbors did not immediately connect it to anything dangerous. Their Ring camera provided additional timing information, showing the vehicle present and then gone within the critical morning window. The autopsy removed any lingering doubt about suicide. According to the transcript, Todd had been shot 7 times, including a fatal close-range shot. His electronics were still in the house and there was no obvious theft of his property, but one important item was missing: his phone. Detectives began to suspect that the killer had taken it deliberately. The crime scene itself was also telling detectives what had not happened. Todd's wallet and devices were not described as the focus of a robbery, and the rest of the home did not look as though a stranger had systematically searched it for valuables. That made the missing phone stand out even more. Whoever left the house apparently did not need to carry away everything connected to Todd. Just one device capable of revealing calls, messages, locations, and recent contacts. The decision to remove that phone would later become especially important once investigators compared its movement with another device leaving Hudson. At nearly the same time, investigators uncovered a digital clue that changed the case. At 7:21 that morning, a 911 call had been made from a cell phone at Todd's address. Dispatch answered, but nobody spoke. On its own, a silent emergency call could have been accidental. In the context of the neighbor's timeline, however, it was extraordinary. The call appeared to have occurred within moments of the gunfire. Police traced that phone to an Akron woman named Tarana. The transcript describes her as a thin woman with dark hair who drove a silver vehicle, details that were consistent with what witnesses had observed. Investigators did not yet know whether she had witnessed the killing, been present for some other reason, or had participated in the crime. But her phone appeared to place her at the house at exactly the time detectives needed to explain. When officers went looking for Tarana, she was not where they expected to find her. Detectives obtained phone data and began reconstructing her movements. 6 minutes after the silent 911 call, her phone was moving near the Interstate 271 split in Macedonia at close to 60 miles per hour. At the same time, Todd's missing phone appeared to be traveling along essentially the same route. Then Todd's phone stopped moving. Searches along the highway did not recover it. That movement was difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Investigators eventually located Tarana at her sister's apartment and brought her in for questioning. By then, another piece of evidence had made the case even more serious. A 9mm casing from Todd's home was matched to a firearm connected to an unsolved Cleveland homicide from 2021. In that earlier investigation, the transcript says Tarana had been the registered owner of the gun, the victim's former girlfriend, and a primary suspect, although she was not charged at that time because investigators did not have enough evidence. Now detectives focused on the phones. Searches recovered from Tarana's digital activity showed interest in Todd and his address. Investigators also found a search asking whether police could track a phone after the SIM card was removed. According to the transcript, she repeatedly checked news coverage of the Hudson homicide, looking more than 40 times to see whether her own name had appeared. The connection between Todd and Tarana also became clearer. Detectives found a Bumble conversation showing that the two had connected through the dating app shortly before Todd's death and exchanged contact information. Tarana used the name Siobhan in the conversation, which she acknowledged was part of her name. Yet during questioning, she repeatedly said she did not remember Todd or did not recognize him. During the interview, Tarana tried to distance herself from several of the devices detectives showed her, at times suggesting that a phone belonged to her daughter. Investigators pushed back, explaining where the phones had been found and what the data contained. The questioning was not built around a single accusation. Detectives moved from search history to dating messages, from vehicle information to Cash App records, repeatedly giving her an opportunity to provide an explanation that could fit the evidence. Her answers stayed largely the same. She did not know, did not remember, or could not explain how her phone, car, and accounts appeared in the timeline. The transcript also says she discarded a phone and changed a SIM card after the killing. By then, detectives had begun tracing her digital activity. They recovered searches, reviewed her repeated checks of murder coverage, and used location records to rebuild the timeline. Investigators compared those records with witness descriptions, the vehicle near Todd's home, and Todd's phone. Her effort to distance herself from the device became another part of the evidence trail. Phone location records told a different story. They placed her in Hudson shortly after midnight and on the street where Todd lived through the night. Her vehicle was also consistent with the car seen leaving the area after the neighbors heard the loud bangs. Detectives confronted her with these details, but she continued to deny being at Todd's home. Then investigators followed the money. Todd had sent Tarana $50 through Cash App in the early morning hours. About 23 minutes after that payment, a second transfer for $1,000 was initiated to an account identified in the interview as hers. That larger transfer did not complete because additional verification was required. When detectives asked why a man she claimed not to remember would be sending her money, Tarana said men sometimes sent her money and suggested the $50 payment was not unusual. But even she acknowledged that receiving $1,000 randomly would be different. The financial trail mattered because it placed a direct connection between the two during the same narrow period established by the phone data and witness accounts. But detectives still had something even harder to explain away. Forensic testing matched Tarana's DNA to samples recovered from a condom in Todd's bedroom. The transcript says her DNA was found on both the inside and outside. That evidence directly contradicted her repeated claims that she could not remember meeting Todd. What had begun as a welfare check now contained several independent layers pointing toward the same person. The accidental emergency call, phone location data, the vehicle, dating app records, payments, search history, forensic evidence, and the ballistic connection to a gun associated with her. Throughout the interrogation, detectives tried to get Tarana to explain what happened inside the house. She continued denying that she shot Todd and insisted she did not know or remember him. The transcript does not establish a detailed confession or a fully explained motive. What it does establish is the evidence investigators assembled and the legal outcome that followed. Tarana initially pleaded not guilty, but on the day her trial was scheduled to begin, she accepted a plea deal and pleaded guilty to Todd Morgan's murder. According to the transcript, the agreement resulted in a sentence of 20 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 23 years. For Todd's family, the case began with something painfully ordinary: a child waiting to be picked up from school. Within hours, that missed pickup exposed a violent scene and launched an investigation built less around one dramatic clue than around dozens of details that reinforced one another. A footprint that did not belong to police, a car across the street, a silent 911 call, two phones moving together, money sent in the final hours, a dating app conversation, DNA in the bedroom, and digital searches made after the killing. Each piece alone left room for questions. Together, they created a timeline that became increasingly difficult to escape. And perhaps that is what makes this case so unsettling. The strongest evidence was not hidden in one spectacular discovery. It was scattered across an ordinary house, neighborhood cameras, payment records, cell towers, and devices people carry every day. A professor's unexplained absence became a murder investigation because one person noticed that he had failed to do something he almost never missed. From there, investigators followed the evidence wherever it led. Which clue do you think changed this case the most? The accidental 911 call, the phone location trail, the financial records, or the DNA evidence?